Well, it's been kind of interesting trying to film today. Darren and I are turning our backs to the wind and everything else. You know, when you're out spraying herbicides, you're hopefully thinking a lot about the wind too, but at this time of the year, you might not have to be as concerned when you're out there doing some fall spraying. Today we want to talk a little bit about late fall application of herbicides.
Well, with application of soil applied herbicides, we're looking for certain products that we're going to be using. We aren't looking for contact activity of killing weeds this late in the year. We're looking at soil residual products for next year. So the first question that we get, especially on a day like today, is what kind of spray pressure and what kind of gallons of water am I going to be needing to use when I'm putting a soil residual type herbicide out there?
Well, this is one of the things I think over the years farmers have been really misled on, is there are many people who will tell you you have to use high water and high pressure.
Water's the cheapest thing you're putting in the tank, Brian.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I don't look at it that way. You don't have to have lots of water if you want to get a decent job done with your pre-emerge herbicide. It does make a difference if you're incorporating that herbicide either now or later, or if you're just going to leave it on the surface of the soil. Let me put it to you this way. If you're working that ground around, you're going to stir things up a little bit. Quite frankly, you could go out there with 3 gallons of water for all I'm concerned, and the pressure isn't even all that important. If all you're going to do is leave it on the soil surface, you are not going to work it, you're going to no-till into it later, I would probably run with higher pressure or higher water. So if the wind is blowing 10 miles an hour, you say, well, I don't want to use 60 pounds of pressure, then you're going to have to use more water. But if the wind is calm and you want to go with 3 gallons of water, that's fine. Just keep your pressure up to 50 or 60 pounds. And please, when you're spraying pre-emerge herbicides, do not use turbo T-jets, do not use air induction nozzles. We want flat fan nozzles or something else that's going to give you a good spray pattern and smaller droplets so we get better coverage on the soil.
Okay, now, you may be thinking, all right, I know how to spray it, but what am I going to spray and what am I going to choose? Let's talk about the corn products first. And historically over the years, Dual has dominated this market, and their marketing pitch has been that Dual lasts longer than the other pre-emerge products.
No way.
The marketing isn't exactly right?
Well, marketing is the whole key word. The only reason why Dual has sold more than some of these other products in the fall is Syngenta's marketed it. So Harness, Surpass, and Outlook are going to work just as well in the fall as Dual will work in the fall. So whichever product you use, the main thing is not so much that you focus on that product. You've got to look at some other factors. In other words, when you're out there spraying in the fall, we usually tell people use a slightly higher rate. I tell guys up the rate by 5 to 10%. Make sure you're spraying late in the fall. And the third and probably the most important thing is you've got to plant that ground real early in the spring to get good crop canopy, because you've got that chemical out there and you just don't want to see that chemical getting eaten up by any weeds that might be coming, or for that matter, bacteria that get going when the soil warms up. You've got to plant those fields first in the spring.
Well, we talked about those products that we're using ahead of corn, and for the most part, they're going to control the grasses. You may see some small-seeded broadleaf control, but really nothing on the broadleaf side compared to what you're getting for grasses. On the broadleaf side for pre's, there are a lot of guys that like to put atrazine out in the fall, and I'm really opposed to that. I don't like to see atrazine out for a couple of reasons. One, atrazine moves with water very well, and especially if you're laying it on the top or working it in real shallow, if you get any kind of rainfall, snow melt, those kind of things, you can definitely lose some of that atrazine. And you know what? We really do like atrazine. It's one of our favorite products. It's been cheap and very effective for weed control, but use it in the right way. We like to use it post-emerge when you've got weeds up. That'll absorb that atrazine and pull it in right away so you don't end up with issues in the environment.
For other broadleaf weed control in corn, you look at Balance Pro. It doesn't have tremendously long residual. I probably would not put that out in the fall. You can do something like Sencor. That is also pretty leachable, just like atrazine. I would not do that in the fall. So you don't have a lot of good options for broadleaves.
And we don't really need it, because in corn broadleaves are pretty easy to kill post-emerge. We're mainly concerned with the grass. Now in soybeans, it's a different story. With soybeans, we're concerned about those broadleaf weeds, especially for guys that are using conventional or Liberty Link beans.
Yeah, and there are some people who will put Valor out in the fall, or Spartan. that could be used. Authority Assist, those types of products have pretty long residual, but again, you've got to make sure you're planting those fields first in the spring. And I'll say this too, we never will put a pre-emerge herbicide out in the fall on ground that could potentially flood out. So we have to be certain we know what crop we're going to plant there. We have to be certain we can plant it early in the spring. If it doesn't meet those criteria, we are not doing fall application there. So this may not fit for you at all on your farm, or it might only fit on half of your acres. But let's put it this way, if you've got 2 extra days in the fall where you're not 100% busy those days, and you can go out and spray some pre-emerge herbicide out for a couple days, that's 2 days less work you have to do in the spring, and that could make a huge difference in terms of good weed control and good crop next year.
And when we're talking about corn and soybeans, you aren't improving your weed control by doing it in the fall rather than the spring. You're spreading out your workload.
Yep.
That's really the key to what we're doing.
But just don't forget, we want to spray it late in the fall. You probably want to use a slightly higher rate in the fall, and you have to plant those fields early in the spring so you get good crop canopy, and then you're not expecting any more out of your herbicide that it can actually provide.
I don't care if you're talking about fall or spring application, whenever it is, you have to get our weed of the week under control. Can you identify this week's weed?